Welcome to the Occult Rejects. We are two former secret society members who were determined to show the public the truth that occultism has been purposely integrated into every aspect of society, from politics to music, Hollywood, and science. This is used to manipulate the public as a whole and to protect the fake elite. The symbols are used all around us to affect world events and public perception, our behavior, and even our future. We will translate the occult so that you have eyes to see. We reject their agenda to give you the tools to save yourself. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Occult Rejects with your hosts Lux
and the NY Patriot.
And today we have a very special guest who's actually never done a podcast before, so this is her first time presenting some of the information that she has. Her name is Susan Mary, and she is fantastic with numbers, Gematria, and wanted to have her on the show because her information, I think everyone needs to hear it. A lot of people will always try to make the argument that Gematria is, you can make any numbers fit into, anything that you want. So they sometimes, even in the occult community, will sort of dispel it as bunk. Personally, I think that there's a lot of validity to Gematria, and we're really, really excited to have her on the show today. So thanks for coming on. How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for being my host of my first podcast.
Thank you for coming on. For real, like we were even saying before, you can sometimes with Gematria, you can, sometimes maybe you might like grasping at straws or you're leaving stuff too open for interpretation. But I definitely, from ceremonial magic and my own experiences, I do understand that Gematria is real. It's definitely, it makes sense. And to be totally honest with you, you're the first person I've asked to come on because you do present it a little bit differently. Not trying to self-esteem and make me sound like that I'm a prick. But but honestly, you do a really good job. That you caught my attention. I was like, yo, damn. I was like, yo, I have to get this girl on. And I messaged you. I even commented in your shit. Yo, I need to have you on my show. I was telling other people, fans of mine, to say something to you. So I was like, yo, this girl really, you have a knack with that shit. And this is amazing for us to have you on. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It's kind of odd for me because I never really had a knack for numbers. All of this stuff is very new to me. I'm new to understanding and learning about the occult myself. I've been doing this for close to. I've kind of known about the conspiracy for about 4 years now, but the Gematria stuff I kind of figured out, around 2 years ago. It was kind of all simultaneously with the when the pandemic hit.
Maybe something to do too, right?
And the wild thing is I was kind of shouting from the rooftops before the pandemic hit because I was very suspicious that something was planned for the 3/11 date. There's all kinds of stuff in pop culture pointing to that date. So I actually went to my parents and I went to a local church because I was so alarmed by it. And I said, these folks are planning a global event.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't really have the whole picture put together. So I didn't know how to articulate what I thought was going to happen or what I thought was being planned. But now I've been able to put the pieces together a little bit better, and I have a better understanding myself of what's going on here. How the occult has conspired to do something pretty destructive.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, especially when you cross-reference the occult stuff with what they're putting openly in their papers. You look at the lockstep documents, the Rockefeller documents and all of those meetings and the was that the Event 201 or whatever that was?
Right.
Agenda 2030 and all that kind of stuff. It's they're openly telling us what the plan is and when they're going to do it. It's just that it's so funny to me because I see so much cognitive dissonance even among people who I know and consider to be good occultists. It's almost as if they don't want to believe that there's an actual game
I've
plan.
thought that myself.
You know,
I've thought that myself.
Yeah.
To be totally honest,
Yeah.
what I thought was
Yeah,
weird.
it's been very difficult
When I
for me to understand what's going on with people and their thinking with this.
yeah.
It's kind of so clear. It's so clear to us, because we're kind of, a lot of us that were sitting here and waiting for this, and here it is. But if you're stuck into that narrative, you're just,
What's up with
some sort of witchcraft to it all as well.
What were you saying,
So-
Conway?
what was up with that? Now you mentioned, I'm sorry, I'm going back probably to 3/11. What was that? Like, what made you think about that being an important date?
Well, first off, it's exactly 6 months from 9/11. And 6 is, one of their big numbers, represents Saturn.
You know what's funny? That would actually get the whole 369 fucking thing going again.
Yes.
9/11, 3/11, and then the 6 months in between. Holy shit.
Yeah. It's wild. Whenever
I covered that whole 369 thing with numbers and drawing all this stuff on this graph paper. That stuff blew my mind with this whole 369 series.
It's wild. This is what I believe the Kabbalists have figured out is that what we're in, has to be intelligently designed because it's basically a giant math equation, and
Right.
they figured out the pattern that the planets create, and that's where numerology comes from. And there is a real pattern here that they discovered, and they've tapped into it, and they plan their events around it. So they plan their events around the celestial activity and the numerology that is tied up with that celestial activity.
You know what? I think it's just the same as. Did you ever see Hunger Games, the third Hunger Games? When they realized they were in a dome and that was really a clock.
Oh wow! No, I have not seen that one. That would be about right, though.
Yeah. They had started to realize, like, one smart dude there noticed, like, hey, all this shit seems to be like there's a schedule to everything going on.
It is. Yes. Yep.
And I think in magic, honestly, I think when you start really getting up there, it's like hacking into that system, really.
Right.
Or at least that's what I think is being done to us. Like, people are hacking into it and using it against us.
Yes. Yeah. It's like that Jim Henson movie, Dark Crystal, I believe.
Oh yeah.
One of the puppets, the like witch-looking puppet, she's got this clock mechanism that's the planet's spinning, and she mentions the Great Saturn conjunction, and the Great Saturn conjunction is the day that Biden took his jab at exactly 322 to the second. And in the Jim Henson movie, the woman says that the Great Saturn conjunction is the end of the world or the beginning. So,
you know what's crazy now? Now, I would sometimes associate like the abyss. I mean, even though I associate it with Saturn crossing over, sometimes I do think green and Netzach is used as a resemblance of crossing over as well.
okay.
If I wanted to, invoke Netzach or Venus, normally when you go to, depending on how you do your magic, if I'm using like the Kabbalah and let's say exactly like the seventh sphere, which is Netzach, if I wanted to invoke that sphere, I'm going to break that number into 3 numbers that adds up to 7 and then knock. So it literally could go as 3, 2, 2, which would kind of show Saturn and the abyss.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's interesting how even you said the 3, 2, 2 could go with the knocks to invoke that sphere as well.
Yes. And they love those repeating numbers, you know. So 311 is, of course, 3 times 11, which is 33. And then 11 days after 311 is 322. And 11 is, you know, it kind of represents magic or Lucifer, the rebellion. You know, they have a lot of multiple meanings for, you know, the 11 even represents the twins. So you know, there's a lot of different, it's wild how it kind of, a lot of different meanings for each symbol represents different things.
Yeah, and just for listeners, you know, this the way that our modern gematria is understood is based on a much, much older system of the Hebrew language, which is what we touched upon on the Scarlet Horse series. Because in Hebrew, you know, of course, you're first of all you're reading from right to left, not from right to left like we do in modern times. But in each one of those letters in the Hebrew alphabet, okay, there being 22, each one of those letters represents a number, and it corresponds to a tarot card, and also corresponds to a very specific vocalized sound. So this is not something new. This has been going on for a very long time. It's like she said, they just have figured out a good way to understand it. So, you know, speaking the same language, just in 2 different time periods.
Yes.
Yeah, you nailed it. Best way to say it, for real. So, what do you? Is there anything that specific that you want to start off with first? If there
Well, I
are,
guess
is there anything else you wanted to cover about how you got into it or any of that? Is there anything else you want to tell about your story beforehand, before like getting into any stuff that you want to present?
Sure. I've had kind of a odd experience. I was probably leaned more conservative. I was not like a diehard, but I was in support of Trump and all this stuff, you know, and I believe the story.
So did
I was pretty glad when he won, but it was mostly because, of course, I hated Hillary so much.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But so I was kind of in that line of thought of conservatism, and I didn't know anything of conspiracy, and I thought all conspiracy talk was goofy because I was raised to believe conspiracy talk was goofy, you know.
Right.
And the conspiracy stuff that I saw online, it did seem kind of goofy, but I think that's kind of put there. You know, I think a lot of that stuff's put there to turn us off to the idea that the elite could be conspiring against us. But one day, so I had kind of a supernatural event. I was out in my shop and just completely out of the blue, the words CERN and Saturn popped into my mind, and they just sat there. And I just kept thinking about them over and over and over until I decided to, you know, just get online and look it up. And when I looked up Saturn, the first thing that I kind of noticed was this bizarre hexagon storm that's on the North Pole of Saturn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that is wild. You know, how come I never heard about this? And, you know, and I read that scientists don't really know how this storm manifests itself and how it's stable and continue for all this time, you know. So I found this to be like just super fascinating. And then I started looking into CERN, and I saw there was a lot of like kind of bizarre occult stuff going on there. Just a lot of strange things. But then after learning more about Saturn, I learned that there was just this great significance to Saturn, to the occult, and to our history. You know, the Romans had the temple to Saturn, and it's always been associated with human sacrifice, and just, you know, dark, of course. And after figuring out that, of course, I could not ignore all the latent occult symbolism that was being broadcast to everyone via our entertainment. It's just everywhere I look. There it is. There it is. There it is. And
I mean, it's been bad for a while, but I feel like the last few years it's really been thrown out in our faces, like ridiculously.
it is. It's nuts. It's really bizarre. And so after I figured out that occult symbolism was the same symbolism as Masonic symbolism, then I started to get a little concerned because, these are secret societies that have a goal. And I learned or, figured out what I believe to be their goal. And then to see that the occult was so prevalent in everything. I couldn't deny that this was an issue that should be investigated further. And everyone around me would tell me to not do that. Don't look at the darkness. It glorifies the devil and this kind of thinking, and I kind of understand that to a degree, but I could not ignore it, seeing that it seemed like it was working towards a goal. So I thought people need to pay attention to what these guys are up to. And then William Ramsey has been a big influence in my life.
Yeah, that's funny. I said that I always say that he was an influence for me to start a show, and he actually influenced me to leave the OTO. Believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Well, there was things with magic that I think, like, he covered certain topics that I think I just chose to look at him differently. Like the whole thing with the Damien Eccles and all that Mississippi. I forgot where that.
Yeah.
Those dudes. I had looked at a lot of things, and I think kind of just was like, yeah, it's probably propaganda and fake because, like, I'm in the same thing. I'm in. So I think I kind of turned a blind eye to some stuff, and I heard William Ramsey covered some things that I was just like, this is enough information for me to start questioning. Maybe these people really are guilty. Maybe these people really are screwed up. And I started. It helped me open my eyes and stop drinking the Kool-Aid for myself. I'll tell you that much for sure.
Yes. Yeah, and he, I learned a lot from him about the occult nature of the architecture of 9/11.
Oh, well, that was very Thelemic, very influenced by Thelemic stuff.
Yeah, clearly, right. And the towers themselves were clearly representing something greater than just two buildings. And the towers themselves make up a 33, so they're 11, and they have 3 sections on each. So it's kind of like a built-in 33 there, and they represent 3 each, so it's like 311. And exactly 6 months after 9/11, on 3/11. After the event, they do you know about the I think it's called the Tribute in Blue?
Yeah.
They shown 88 blue lights, and the it ran for 33 days. 88 lights for 33 days, and then so that opens up the 88, which is it's all over the occult.
Yes, yeah, or even just that type of looking symbol of an 8 is all over the place.
Yes, yeah, representing kind of infinity and death and rebirth and this kind of stuff, right? And then with 9/11, there's also the all the numbers like 93. Which represents Saturn. Saturn in Gematria is 93 and 21, which is interesting because the 20th anniversary of 9/11 was 2021. And from 1933 to 2021 is 88 years. And from 1988 to 2021 is 33 years. So it just all works out perfectly mathematically.
Fuck. I knew like 93 sometimes I think that it might go with the moon matrix Saturn, or just completely Saturn in itself. I had always thought that it was like I even have like the fucking tattoo, the universal hexagram, and
Right.
sometimes it almost does make me think of the sigil Saturn, the sigil for Saturn itself. I think it has something to do with Saturn for sure as well.
Yes, and that
I
looks
think
very
it's
similar
kind of
to.
like it can be drawn in one line. You don't have to lift your pen up. That's why they call it
Mhm.
the universal hexagram. But I mean, it kind of does look like maybe going back and forth between both worlds if you really look at it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And it looks very similar to the square and compass too, right? I think
Yeah,
it,
the square and compass is actually when we covered the Scarlet Whore. I really do. I think we mentioned it, or I said it. I really do think the square and compass is for them. I think the compass is to draw the circle for Binah, and the square I think is for the cube of Saturn.
okay,
Yeah.
right.
The
Yeah.
way that the tree of life too, if you look at the way that the tree of life is laid out, you have 3, which would be Binah, Tiferet, which would be 6, and Yesod, which would be 9, all directly go to each other without having to go to another sphere. So a lot of times what they're doing with this, with the numbers, is they're talking about pathways on the tree of life as well, or bringing in energy from certain spheres into our reality. So it's like they're
Right.
drawing it down, and yeah, like you said, the compass square, they're using it to secretly talk about how to navigate that pathway,
Okay.
and then they just kind of put it out there in front of our faces to mess with us.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, what
Yeah.
was that number you said though? It was what 9321. What was it again? If you don't mind me asking. I think you said there was a value of Saturn. I think.
I just related it to the number 93.
Yeah, but I think you said there was what 9321. The first two numbers were 93, and then there was two other numbers, right? Or it was just 93.
I think it was just 93.
Okay, no, because I thought you said 9321, and I was like thinking
Okay.
if you did that backwards, that would actually almost make sense too. You'd be coming from Kether, and then you'd be shooting from Saturn to
Oh,
the
okay.
moon.
Well, so I'm learning a lot about occultism through all this,
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff is really new to me as well. So, but and then with the 93 and what happened on 9/11, there was just so many 93s. There was Flight 93. I believe Flight 11, which was the first flight, I believe it hit floor 93. And the bombings of 93. So there was just this repeating pattern of 93.
I didn't know that.
And
Wow.
of course, Aleister Crowley, Thelema is represented by 93. And Crowley himself has numerology to 9/11. So he was born 53 years, 9 months. No, not born. I believe it was his death date. 93 years, 53 years, 9 months, and 11 days to September 11th. So,
53 is a big Masonic number.
is it?
53 and 106. So yeah.
What does the 53 represent?
You know what? I don't know. I just know that I've seen it recently on a documentary where people were somebody was even talking about and showing it with numerical stuff with the Masons and the Rosicrucians that 53 and 106 was important. But I don't think the guy ever actually just discussed the why. But he was showing you how he was showing you tons of 53s and 106 and all this shit.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I think I might have made a comment on one of your posts one time about that. Because I just came across it myself, and I think I commented that 53 and 106. I'm not exactly sure why, but are huge with the Masons.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the weird thing. People will say, well, it's all the numbers. It's like, how can you show a pattern here if it's all the numbers? But so one thing I try to do when I'm sharing this stuff with people is I try to keep the numbers pretty tight and selective, because it's hard enough to grasp. Like, all this stuff is very complex, very complicated.
Yeah.
So I keep it pretty limited. Some folks that get into the gematria, they get into, I think maybe a little too many numbers if you're just trying to wake people up to what's going on. So like 47, which is one of their main numbers. Of course, 11, 22, 33, 93, big one, 88, and 56. I kind of keep it limited to those most of the time.
That's good enough. I mean, there's definitely a lot of stuff just with those numbers.
You could just go to town with those.
Yeah, you really could. Yeah.
So I guess let's start with the eclipse. So what I found interesting with what we're living through now is eclipses have kind of had a way of, being markers for very historic events throughout history. And so, it's like, is there something supernatural going on here, or are a lot of these events being planned by occultists? And to me, it seems kind of pretty clear that the occult plans their events around what's going on in the skies. And, it's like the as above, so below idea. And during the Spanish flu of 1918, there was a historic total solar eclipse that swept across the country. And today, in our lives, there are two historic total solar eclipses. The first one, the first one was August 21st of 2017. And the next one is going to be in 2024. And the crazy thing about this is there are 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days in between these two eclipses.
Wow.
It's pretty phenomenal.
Damn.
And these eclipses form a giant X over the United States. And they will hit a town called Little Egypt twice. So it's like X marks the spot.
Yeah. X22.
X22. Yo, did you, I wanted to ask you, and I hate to interrupt you. It's just something I wanted to ask, and I'll probably forget. Did you get into Gematria because of like QAnon shit?
No, I never believed.
Yeah, because that stuff had a lot of Gematria in it. Well, I saw some of that. And that made me question that. I was wondering if maybe that's how you came across it. Like you noticed that.
No, and honestly, I couldn't tell you. I really believe I came across numerology on my own. Like I feel like I believe that I figured out that there was like a Masonic number between two dates, and I was like, oh wow, this is very interesting. And then I started playing around with that, like checking between dates, and I saw that there was a pattern. And then later on, as I got more into this, I saw, wow, loads of people have picked up on this, that this is actually really a thing. And then I started learning more and more about Kabbalah and the occult, and realized that numbers are like everything. They're everything to them. They base all their rituals off of numbers.
Yeah, I think if people just even started looking at stuff and trying to apply it to the tree of life, you even see a lot of crazy stuff.
Right. And the next thing that's so wild about these eclipses, the first shot in the United States was given at the exact halfway point between the two eclipses, the exact day. And the word corona itself, where we got the name coronavirus, came from what the virus supposedly looks like underneath a microscope. It resembles a solar eclipse. Even the virus itself is pointing to an eclipse. So the first shot was given at the exact halfway point between the two solar eclipses, which was December 14, 2020. So by this point, I figured out that, okay, this is not just, eccentric pop entertainment that's doing the occult. This is our government that's into this stuff. So I figured, well, if our government is into this, then I'm going to see the same evidence in the stuff that they produce. So I started monitoring the official U.S. population census, and I had the thought to check what the population was the day that the first shot was given, and it was the day the U.S. population turned 330 million. And there was one birth every 9 seconds and one death every 11 seconds. So on that day, we had the 33, 9, and 11.
What the fuck?
Aren't they predicting to, I'm not sure what site it was off of, but there was a pretty predominant site that was estimating that sometime within the next, what is it, like 7 years, that the population would drastically fall too.
I've heard that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about what numbers that it was supposed to fall to, but I remember, I can't remember specifically what the numbers were, but I remember them being occult numbers. So it's like they're predicting some big event where there will be a huge loss of life, but then the occult number that they were predicting, I forget what it was, but
Right. Well, I can kind of demonstrate that they mess with these numbers to fit their numerology. If you look at my Instagram page, I don't give out very many predictions because I just don't feel it's wise to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Right. From time to time, whenever I see something that's like glaring, I'll say something. And several weeks before Saturnalia of 2021, and 2021 is very significant because it's the 20th anniversary of 9/11. So it was a big deal for them. I had the feeling that the census would reach 333, and they would do the same thing with the one birth. Let's see if I can find this line.
Oh, it was what, one birth every 9 seconds and a death every 11?
Right, and then there was one international immigrant every 666 seconds.
Oh.
And it did. It hit all those numbers on the first day of Saturnalia. I even recorded the event. And the wild thing is on the last day of Saturnalia, they dropped the U.S. Census back down below that 333 number, which means it will hit that number again.
Oh, fuck.
So if you look at the census today,
Oh man,
I'm thinking it might hit that 333 number again right around 9/11 of this year.
is that like raising the energy for magic? Like, are you supposed to do that, Lex? Like in the rituals, you're supposed to raise the energy.
I mean, if I was going to be doing a ritual, yeah, I would definitely do
I
some
know
type
that
of.
fucked up.
No, if I was going to be doing some type of crazy dark ritual, and I wanted to, I would change those. I would change those numbers, or have those numbers be represented on that exact same day.
Yeah, and it's so weird because I might have been the only person in the United States who was monitoring the U.S. Census like that, and I was screen recording it, and it's to me it's so weird how they drop those numbers down. Why did they do that? Anyway, that's just kind of odd.
Yeah.
Let's see. Going back to this date, December 14, right? So that was the big day. That was the first shot, and I kind of figured out that Trump's a Mason, So I checked his numbers, and the year of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, he turned exactly 666 months old on the shot date, December 14th.
You know what? Didn't we have we had Sean McCann on, and he was even pointing to Trump for stuff with 9/11 too.
Yeah, and I would
at that time.
I would definitely say, as far as the whole Trump thing is concerned, like, first of all, it takes someone very wise to pick up on the Trump stuff, because a lot of people still haven't figured it out yet. Do you know what I mean? People are still waiting for him to kind of come in and rescue everyone. So that's, be very proud of yourself for recognizing that, because that's just to see that in numbers and then to come to that realization that's an amazing thing.
Right. Well, I learned that his greatest influence was Norman Vincent Peale, who was a high-ranking Mason, Master Mason, and he wrote the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, which is, there's a lot of occult principles in that. And Trump was born on a total lunar eclipse. Supposedly. I don't know. A lot of times people say, well, how could this be? How can it line up perfectly? And I believe there's no way we would ever know when these guys were actually really born. I think a lot of times they put out there for the ritual, for the numerology, that they pick a date that's believably close to their actual birth date, and a date that would have strong numerology. But I'm also not opposed to the idea that sometimes these, this Masonry is a generational cult. So I believe sometimes, births could be induced to try to fall on significant dates.
I definitely agree with that.
It did fall on a Friday, which is interesting. For Venus, and that sock again.
Oh, really?
Birthday, yeah. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and Trump, he's just covered in numerology. It's wild. There's so many different rabbit holes we could go down.
Yeah.
I mean, it says that he was born on a blood moon, 1946.
Yeah.
700 days before Israel became a nation. 700 days. 7 would go along with Nephthah again as well.
Well, he became president.
Friday.
He became president with perfect sevens all the way across. If you look up from the day he was born to the day he became president, it's sevens all the way across. But to stick to this eclipse, the eclipse in 2024 is kind of the date that I talk about the most. I feel like it's one of their more significant dates. The Saturn conjunction, that was a really big day for them. But this second total eclipse, I believe, is pretty significant for them as well. Everybody knows the song "Eclipse" by Pink Floyd from the album "Dark Side of the Moon."
I think if people know how to listen to that album the right way, it tells you almost everything.
I think it probably does.
No, they were very. I think they were geniuses at putting that shit out there.
Yes. Yep. And one of the most fascinating things to me about all of this is after you learn the language of these hidden beliefs, and you go back. I was always a huge Floyd fan. When you go back and you listen to all this stuff now, you watch videos for all this stuff now, you're like, holy crap! I totally. There's always a subplot that is the real plot.
Right.
For all the movies we watch, all the music videos, even the news. There's a sub.
For real though, when I started having, I guess, like magical experiences and started seeing things in a different way and making more connections, everything, pretty much everything that I like, music and movies and all stuff like that I was big into, pretty much was like almost seeing it again in a different way now. I'm like,
Right.
holy fuck! Like, how did I not see this the first fucking time?
That's
know,
right.
very,
Yeah, there's so much
very well.
that I've looked back. I'm like, how did I miss this? You know?
Well, it's like once you have the eyes to see it, then it's just the veil comes down and you
Yeah.
start to see it everywhere. You know, because you have it's like putting on a brand new pair of glasses. You see things that you never saw before.
It is, and that's one reason why it's kind of dangerous. You know, because some
Oh, that
people
could
don't
fuck you
hang
up.
with that. You know, you see that you come to understand that you were lied to about basically everything your whole life, and that's heavy. Um, so it sinks a lot of people. And when I first figured out what was going, I was desperate to wake up my family, you know, because I knew this thing was coming, and I knew that it was going to be, I had great suspicion that it was going to be a plague because of all the symbolism that I was seeing. It pointed to it. And the whole point of a plague is a vaccination.
Mm-hmm.
So I was pretty desperate to wake up the people around me. But, you know, I've been more successful with people who aren't so close.
Right? Yeah, that's funny.
And I've learned from other people who are in this, that's kind of how it goes, you know? And it's all so fantastical. You know, this story is beyond belief. It is truly stranger than fiction. So it's if somebody was trying to tell me, and I was still plugged into the mainstream, I get it. You know, I'd be like, okay, this is nuts.
Yeah, exactly. You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah. No, I understand to a point too. So I think if I was to go back a long time ago and like just heard what's out now compared to like what little was when I first started getting into it, I think a lot of it I'd be like, yeah, this is just too far for me now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the heaviness of it, people are too tired, people are too busy, they're overworked, they just don't have the brain space to deal with all of this, you know.
No, I think that's all by design too.
That's exactly right. They've made us overweight, they've made us very unhealthy, we're all sick, and frankly they've dumbed us down, you know.
Oh, for
I
sure.
feel like I didn't learn a damn thing in public school.
No, me either.
I'm kind of angry about it looking back now. You know, I'm like, I didn't learn anything. I didn't start learning until, I mean, it's kind of sad to say, but it's kind of until I started learning what was going on here with this conspiracy. I started for the first time really kind of digging into history and, you know, thinking outside the box a lot more. But anyway, getting back to the numbers here. Of course, there's with the Eclipse song, it lands 18,666 on the day of the eclipse. Pretty wild, you know. And of course, Floyd is, you know, in the cult symbolism.
Oh, for sure. That and the wall, I think, is probably like the most blatant stuff to me.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the whole thing about the wall is actually telling you about crossing the abyss. It's breaking down the wall. That's exactly what it's all about, I think.
Okay. All right. The next slide is Madonna, who we know practices Kabbalah. Let's see. She her last album, I believe, was called Madam X, and I believe that when she says X, she's referring to this giant X that's being formed over the United States right now by these two total solar eclipses. And on the back of this album, she's typing on a Corona typewriter.
Oh, shit, yeah. It does say Corona, though.
Right.
Oh, did you ever check the numbers on the bottom on the barcode?
I think I did at one point. I see 88,
Mm-hmm.
77.
It's 3 sixes too.
Yeah, 66.
Yeah, there's 666 right there. So before I discovered this numerology to this eclipse, I saw her do this performance for Eurovision in Tel Aviv, and it was just a supremely apocalyptic, Masonic. It looked like I was watching a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
They had the pillars on each side. They had the staircase. Right, they're dressed in robes. It's very it's very dark, satanic looking imagery.
Yeah, when I watched that, I was blown away. I couldn't believe how crazy that was.
Right, and this is before the pandemic, and she's got dancers there wearing masks, and
Oh, look at that.
the tour itself appears. You could look at this circle as an eclipse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Exactly.
Right.
Huh.
And the logo that she kind of uses a lot for this resembles the IXXI. Right. Let's see. Go to slide 15.
Sorry, I was just looking at that for more stuff. That's a very weird
I
thing.
know, me too. I was counting the hands.
Yeah,
It's like 11 hands. I was like, wait a minute. 11 hands.
You know those like little clocks that you can get that like come in a glass jar that you can get put on your desk sometimes, and they kind of have like the clock facing you, and there's like the rest is a glass, and it has like a wooden bottom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like that thing right here. I'll just go back to it real quick. The shape of that even reminds me of like that type of clock.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you got the stairwell behind, so Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
Symbology.
Tube. Yeah. All right, sorry. I'll go back now.
See,
Right.
this is what happens when.
Well, you guys might spot some stuff that I missed. So this was her 11th concert tour. And 11, that's one of their top numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And the tour date began September 17th, 2019. And that was 1,666 days to the eclipse. So we have 666 again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait. Is there a slide for that?
And, she's covering one eye with the patch. It's got
Yeah.
the X right there on it. There was a lot of X marks the spot type of stuff. And she really liked that, the IXI symbol. She did the halftime show, Super Bowl halftime show, probably one of the most occult halftime shows. I mean, they're all pretty dark. But she was, it was all Egyptian themed. And she had, she was sitting on a large chair, and the back of the chair looked like it had symbols spray painted on it. And one of the symbols that was spray painted on, I don't think I have an image for this.
Okay.
One of the symbols that was spray painted on that chair was IXXI, which is Roman numerals for 9/11. IX and then
Right.
X.
Oh, yeah.
9/11.
And they're also, that also makes it a mirror image of itself too.
Right.
IXXI. Wow, that's interesting. Like as above, so below.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's that's the Jesuit symbol for Ave Maria is IXXI.
Oh,
And
right.
this all has to do with the Jesuits, of course.
She's even doing it here too in this picture. As so above, so below. That
Yeah.
hand symbolism.
that's what I would
Right.
get. Yeah.
Yeah.
She even pointing New York Patriot. Look, she's even pointing on the tree. It would be to Bana and to Netzach.
Yeah, you're right.
You see,
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. She's in all black too, which would go with Saturn.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and she's such a dark character herself. If you ever check out her Instagram page, it's pretty wild. Everybody's like, okay, Madonna is how old? Was she, like 63 years old or something now? And she looks 20 years younger than me, and I just turned 40. It's wild. Okay, so in this performance that was in Tel Aviv, she performed a song called Future. And this song, if you look up the lyrics, it's like, you're not woke, not everyone's going to the future.
Oh yeah, I remember that song.
Yeah, the lyrics are,
The video is, or when she performed it at Eurovision, and when she did it, I remember seeing that and just thinking, it was so sinister. It gave me the creeps.
right. Yeah, pull up the image with the performers there. See, everybody dies in this performance.
Yeah.
They got the pillars on each side, the staircase, and in the background, they have the Statue of Liberty has been broken, and the imagery is of the United States falling and burning. That's what is depicted here.
Wow. That's wild.
And at the very end, I should have included a clip of this, but at the very end, she walks up the staircase, I believe, holding hands with, was it Cubo, the guy that she
Remember.
performing this with. They walk up the staircase together. They turn around, and there's large screens in the background, and the words. First of all, a pyramid flashes, and then the words "Wake up" appear, and then almost in like a sacrificial way, they both fall off the staircase.
So yeah, it'd be like crossing the abyss. I think it'd probably be that symbolism, don't you, Patriot?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They
Yeah,
were
like the
walking off.
separation of the maybe the separation of both energies, or like leaving them.
and then and crossing the abyss together, like joined
Yeah.
as one.
That's weird.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know much about this at all. About this with her. I mean, I knew she was like out there, but I didn't know about this performance.
Yeah, for anyone listening to this, you should check out this performance. It's pretty wild, Now seeing that we're living through a pandemic and everybody had to wear the masks and all this, it's like, wow, they were really putting it out there.
Yeah. And just real quick to listeners who were wondering about that song that we're talking about. Susan had said a bit of it, but the full chorus here, it says, not everyone is coming to the future, not everyone is learning from the past, not everyone can come to the future, not everyone that's going to be here is going to last, not everyone is coming to the future, and it repeats, you ain't woke, come get woke and hear the broken, come give hope, come give life, only get one, we gotta live it right. Come complete you, advance positive vibes, open your mind, open your eyes. Well, that's not creepy or anything.
I mean, this is all coincidence, really.
Right.
That's wild.
Yeah, and personally, I believe that part of the conspiracy is to reveal that there's been a conspiracy. So, they're really pushing the wake up narrative. It's all over the place. And I've even seen some videos that went kind of viral in the conspiracy realm of supposed Masons outing Masonry. And to me, it feels like it's propaganda to help. They clearly want people to wake up.
Right.
To the quote unquote new world order. The Bill Gates and World Health Organization corruption with all of these folks.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if I've ever said this on our show before, but one of the guys that I was, when I was in the Golden Dawn, this was a higher up guy. I remember one day we were having this conversation talking about common misconceptions about the occult. And this was just me and him talking at this point, but he turned to me and he said, I've never actually met the Illuminati. And I just jokingly said, ah, ha, ha, yeah. And he goes, don't be foolish. If I did, do you think I would tell you?
Mm.
It's, so, like, yeah, talk about warning signs when I was in the Golden Dawn. Should have picked that one up. But, there is. All of these groups, they feed into each other like we show on our podcast. They're working together, and a lot of this information that they put out to the public about waking up and everything. One, it's a taunt, and then two, it's a type of karmic principle that if you tell someone the plan and they do nothing about it, then any repercussions from karma won't be brought back onto the magician because you
Right.
told the others your plan.
I do believe that is definitely part of it. Because they definitely put this stuff in our media.
I definitely agree with that. I think this shit's all on our faces.
Yeah.
I think after a certain amount of times, it doesn't even matter. It's like, all right, you didn't get it. Well, now it's like they almost like say it's okay now. The fuck is over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, after this, so I noticed that May 17th date. They always release this stuff. I've kind of figured out it's always important where they release. It's kind of basically part of the ritual. And Chabad Lubavitch is a big key here with what's going on. They promote Kabbalah, and it was either May 16th or May 17th. These dates are both important to Chabad. They announced that it had been 3,333 years and 3 months since Moses received the 10 Commandments. And how would one know that?
How would they do that? Right.
How did you come up with that number? But that's what they say. The rabbis, they'll tell you how important numerology and how important 33 and 3 is to them. So I noted this date, and it stuck out in my mind because on that same day, Darwin's arch fell into the sea. This famous rock formation. And when it fell, it created twin pillars.
Twin Peaks.
And if you look at the wiki page for it, it says the nickname the remaining stone towers, the pillars of evolution. And Darwin, the name Darwin in Gematria is 33 and 93. And 93 is Saturn.
And the 16th is important for that, for the tablets, or because that would be the in the tarot, the number 16 card is the tower card, the falling of the tower.
Wow. Okay.
Oh shit! Yeah. If it starts with a 0, that would be the 17th card too.
Yeah.
You get that 17 in there from Q.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one. I forgot about that. Yeah, Q is 17. So
that is, and see now with you from your experience in Gematria, you can say that is a big occulted number, isn't it?
It is.
Okay, yeah.
Definitely.
Everybody thinks it's just some QQ shit. That's what shit's like. That means something to people in magic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it definitely does. Yes. And let's see if I got a slide this is on. Okay, back it up to 22, coincidental.
There we go.
Right, 22. So depending on if you include the date or don't include the date, this time period is, very significant to the state of Israel because Israel was founded May 14th. And, just a few days after that is when Chabad makes this announcement about the 10 Commandments, and Israel just happens to turn 26666 on that day. So it matches the 4 threes, the 3 lines up perfectly.
Yeah, you keep getting Fridays too. You noticing that? You're getting a lot of Fridays. That stuff too.
Yeah, that.
And Harry Truman was the 33rd president of the United States, and he was a 33rd degree Freemason.
Yeah, that group that she's talking about, the Shabbat, the Lubavitch, that's the group that I was telling you about, NY, the one out of New York. They're I don't think actually they're too far from you. I think they're located like somewhere. Yeah, somewhere like where you are. I just personally because I know you, but that's anyway. The thing that's weird about them is that they have this weird fascination with this guy named Rebbe Schneerson or something like that, and he was like this guy. He was predicting that the new Messiah was here and that the time for all of this, new age was coming, and so that's like a name that's not really talked about. I'm really glad you brought them up.
Yeah, a lot of people. The thing that I found most frustrating is I don't try to tell people in my personal life this stuff very often. I found right away it doesn't go very far. But the handful of conversations I've had with devout Zionists, they've never heard of Chabad. They've never heard of Gematria. They didn't know that numerology was a real thing that was practiced. They don't know anything about these beliefs. Yet they have from birth been just, raised to believe that you should have unwavering support for the state of Israel. And that's how I was raised as well. But, then I started learning about the occult and Kabbalah, and, this we might have been duped here. And
might have been full.
Appears that's what's going on. The first prime minister of Israel, David Ben Gurion. Let's see if you click on 28.
There we go.
So he died to the terrorist attacks. 27 years, 9 months, and 11 days. That also works out to 333 months and 11 days.
You know what's interesting? The last one too was a Friday and a Monday, and now it's a Saturday and a Tuesday. It's gone one day over on each.
To me, this is what's so interesting is almost always, whenever you find someone who's got numerology coded to 9/11, it very, very often is also coded to 311 and 322. So his numerology works out to 46 years, 3 months, and 11 days to 311. This is the one that's like perfect. It's 47 years, 9 months, and 11 days to the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And that 47, that's the high Masonic number. Like what the compass is set to.
Oh, okay.
So it's like the ritual was closed.
Right.
And it's also 47 years, 3 months, and 22 days to 322. And this date is very significant as well. I started just checking things, and things that would make sense. Like, okay, so the president that we had during 9/11 was a Skull and Bones member. So let me snoop around Yale University a little bit. And
that's funny. That's great.
So I checked the numerology for 322. So this is the crazy thing right here. So I had a very, very small conspiracy page where I was trying to show people this stuff and got almost no traction. But I made a video and I shared it on March 21st because I had discovered this numerology right here. Go to slide 33.
Awesome. Oh, that's great.
Okay, so I discovered that Yale University had this crazy numerology. And I'm just going to say the numbers for people because sometimes it's easier. 11666 1322. And remember, this is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. So I made a video kind of showing some of this stuff. And I shared it the day before because I was suspicious something would happen on 322. And I included, do you remember the Boston bomber?
Yeah.
Young guy. I can't remember his name. All I know that his name in Gematria equals 322. And the Boston bombings, if you check it out on a map, the finish line was at 666 Boylston Street.
No.
It was. So if you want to fact check that, what you do is you research where the finish line was, and it'll give you like two figures, and the 666 is right in the middle.
Oh.
So I included this guy in the video. And on the day, on 322, there was a mass shooting. And the mass shooting took place at King Suppa, number 33. The police department involved was on 33rd Street. The phone number for the police department was 3333.
Because that's just totally by coincidence, absolutely.
Just coincidentally.
That's wild.
I bet you his age was probably like 33 or something too.
Yeah,
I do believe there's like a lot more to that. People who kind of caught on, started digging around and found a whole ton of 33s.
Well, even today with me and Lux, we recorded earlier for our own stuff. And how many times did 33 come up in what we covered, just in random things? A few times.
A lot. And Yale. Yale University did too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
So the crazy thing about that date on 322, the Boston bomber made national headlines. They to do with something with his death sentence. Yeah, so that coincidence there blew me away because I had just shared a video and I kind of featured him in it, And then the next day on 322, there's a mass shooting and national headlines all about the Boston bomber.
Fascinating. Sorry if we aren't talking much. I'm like absolutely captivated by this.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back into. I'm just going to show that there's like so much stuff coded to this eclipse. You might remember the album Escape, but that looks pretty clearly to be Saturn symbolism.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that.
And Michael Jackson, he's got a wild history with all of this. He dabbled in Kabbalah, and he's definitely in the system.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, you're totally right.
So that album, Escape, which is interesting because what I have kind of come to assume is, Masons believe in ascension. So it's like escaping from this realm.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, and I was looking this up not long ago for one of the things we were covering for the Scarlet Horse series, but Saturn, the storm that you were talking about, happens, scientists believe, roughly between every 30 to, guess what, 33 years. And that's when they noticed that there is a giant flare in the storm system on Saturn. Like, just, I mean, come on, man. All this stuff, it's all lines up the same exact way.
Yeah, there's a lot of and you know what the thing is too, I think a huge problem is though when it comes to occultism, I don't even think people truly understand Saturn.
Right.
So even when shit gets pointed to Saturn a lot, I don't even know if it really is making much of a difference.
Mm-hmm. Almost to me, when it comes to the Saturn thing, it's like they always reference it. At least in my view, this is my personal view, but I think that Saturn is a door. I think it allows entry in and out of whatever dimension this is. So that's why they're so focused on it. And I also think that it has something to do with the correlation with that serious stuff that you and I were talking about, because that's, they're using that light from the dog star. And also, like we covered on Scarlet Horror, that each one of those different moons or satellite planets are all named like Delta, Omicron, Corona, and stuff. So it's like they're putting it out there. They're telling us how they plan on getting out or exiting and stuff.
I think you're totally right, and that's why I think it's almost considered a dead end road in occultism because they don't want you knowing too much.
Yes, exactly.
You notice here again, I've mentioned it before. You get another Friday with Escape Friday, and then even Wednesdays for Magic. That would be Thoth or Mercury.
Yeah.
You got March 11 in there. I mean, it's a pretty good date, depending on what you want to do.
Right. It's okay. Yeah. While you were gone, we found out something pretty cool because we were looking at this picture here. New York Patriot had brought up the fact that the Fridays keep coming up, right? So if you look up Michael Jackson here, the time that he died was 2:26 p.m. on Friday. But if you look at that as from the planetary hour, when the Friday at between 1:44 and 5 p.m. is the planetary hour of Saturn.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's done on a Friday and at that specific time. So there's definitely more to that. You know what I'm saying? Like they're almost planning or saying deaths happen at certain time to suggest some type of magic behind it.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely think going forward in your stuff, start paying attention more to Friday. You notice that a lot in your shit. That has a lot to do with it could be Venus, it could be Netzach, it could be a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's something I haven't even noticed at all, except for Saturday. Of course, Saturday popped out in my mind with some of this stuff.
Right.
But the slide, let's see, number 35. Okay, so this is kind of his last album, Escape. The release date was May 9th, 2014. And that was exactly 9 years and 11 months before this second total solar eclipse. Or 119 months.
Fucking wild.
It was a Friday, by the way. May 9th, 2014 was a Friday.
There was something on a Friday and a Monday, and then the next one was a Saturday and a fucking Tuesday. And now we're back to a Friday and a Monday again. You'll see, you know how you were talking about 93 being very important before? I mean, you could even look at Friday as being for Venus for love. I mean, love is the law, love of the will. I mean, Friday might be important to them as well.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think you might have had extra, I think you might have stumbled on something I never even realized before here.
Yeah, and there's, Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Right.
With the Templars and.
I mean, for me, because Hathor fell on that day, I practiced, or did stuff with her quite often. And so for me, it was normal for me to do things on Fridays, but I never really thought of how it would be this important. It seems to be coming up quite often with Fridays.
Right. Well, remember, Friday is also, not Friday, Venus, like you were saying, associated with Friday. Weren't we talking about how Friday, God damn it. Weren't we saying that Venus is the only one of two planets that spins clockwise, not counterclockwise? Remember that?
Oh yeah, I think it is.
Just
Oh,
something,
wow.
something to think about there.
Yeah, and that the element associated with it is copper, and when it oxidizes, it turns green,
Yeah,
just
it
like the
has a-
color with the sphere.
and has strong electrical current. We might be onto something here. What we could do if we just did one of these types of podcasts every week, we might have some crazy discoveries.
Oh, here's another one. I didn't include any visuals for this, but people in the conspiracy realm will probably pick up on this. You remember the movie Larry Crown? Tom Hanks?
No,
No.
Not a good movie.
I haven't heard of it. So.
Yeah, well, okay, so in 2011, Tom Hanks announced that he had the virus on 3/11, the day that the pandemic was declared. Excuse me, it was declared a global pandemic on 3/11.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
Hanks came out and announced that he had COVID that day, and his son came out and announced it as well on Instagram, shirtless, and exposing all of his Masonic tattoos. He had the all-seeing eye right there on his chest.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Larry Crown, and Crown spelled with an E, is 33 in Gematria. In the movie, he had the nickname Lance Corona. Okay, so Corona meaning eclipse, coronavirus. It was brought up that he maybe had the flu during this movie. 3/11 is hidden in there like many times. It's crazy. The movie was released July 1st, 2011, which was 4,666 days to the second eclipse. So Lance Corona, which means eclipse, was 4666 to the second eclipse.
Shit.
Yeah, I could just go on and on. I think one of the most interesting ones is how Pfizer and Moderna both have 666 in their customer service numbers.
Well, yeah.
Of course they do.
Look at Joseph Smith. He's even got 666 in his.
Yeah. Founder of Mormonism, he turns a 666 on the eclipse. And he was, of course, a Freemason.
Right. They had all those letters that came out years later where they found correspondence between him and another person where he was talking about it being a Mason.
You want to cover this? Oh, they got 666 in here again.
Yes, this was, Biden. We were talking about Chabad announcing it had been 3,333 years since Moses received the Ten Commandments. Well, 3 days before that, Biden turned 28,666 days old on Israel's founding date.
Whoa.
And Biden has done just all kinds of 666. You could do a whole podcast just on how many times 666.
Fucking awesome.
But this one was pretty significant. They came out with private businesses would be, they threatened that they would be able to fire people who didn't take the jab. And that the first day you would be able to fire someone would be January 5th of 22, which just happened to be 666 days after the pandemic was declared.
Wow.
And this was also the date that AT&T had planned to roll out its 5G.
Huh.
And the interesting thing about AT&T is have you ever wondered why 9/11 is our emergency number? Isn't it interesting that the event that we are also familiar with, 9/11, also is our emergency number?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, AT&T set the number to be 9/11 just a couple months before construction on the Twin Towers began. The first 911 call was placed, I believe, 2 months before construction started. And AT&T, if you look at AT&T's architecture, like the buildings that they own, it's all like 33s, like their most famous buildings that have been in the news. They've got one that has like the Taurus horns. I believe it's on like 333 Commerce Street, Nashville, something like that. And it's 33 stories tall.
Wow.
Yeah, so AT&T is clearly a Masonic-run company.
Right.
I've often wondered if the 9/11 was sounds silly, but I forgot his name. Would have given him a shout out right now. Had him on my show a while ago. He was even covering parts like out on his own stuff where he was showing the phone pad. He really thought it was the Tree of Life.
Oh,
And he thought
really?
Yeah, he really thinks that it's including the 9/11 is including like Doth. It's basically you're tapping into the Yesod sphere, I guess, which would be the moon.
I've tried to figure out the significance of 9/11. I know that 9 and 11 are very important occult numbers. 9 associated with ascension. So it's just kind of merging those two numbers. But it's fascinating with people's phone numbers. Like Larry Silverstein, the guy that owned the Twin Towers, his contact number is 666. And another one of his numbers is 2322. So it's got 322 in it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. A lot of the stuff when we point to 9 or if we point to as Yesod or the moon, if you did take into consideration that we're in a matrix by the moon, caused by the moon, the 9 coming up when it does would make more sense as well. To be totally honest with you. I don't know how far you go with that, Susan, but or our listeners, but for me, when you start seeing a lot of that 9 coming up in certain things, and you even saying ascension, well, yeah, you got to get past that bitch if you want to ascend, right? It's the one keeping you in the matrix.
Yeah.
I mean, there's if you start looking at it in certain ways, it almost kind of starts to make sense. That, that's what it is. You see this 9 come up a lot.
Yep.
Yes, it's always there. And if you go to the official Church of Satan page, they list 9 and 11 as like their top significant numbers. 9/11 and 666, and the same construction company that built the Twin Towers also built 666 Fifth Avenue.
Doesn't Jared Kushner now own?
He did. He owned it. I don't think he owns it anymore. But he did. He bought it. I think he bought it for like a record high price for some reason.
Probably $666 million.
Yeah. He clearly wanted it for the numerology. Right. They practice Kabbalah. They wear the Kabbalah bracelet, and they're in with Chabad. And Kushner in Gematria is 33 and 93.
Yeah, I know. I really hope that a lot of people listen to this podcast because there's so much stuff that goes on with Gematria, Trump, and Kushner, and like these predictions that are now like coming true of prophecy from certain biblical books and also Torah books. I just hope that people listen to it because there's so much. It's super important information right here.
Yeah, I believe right now they're kind of setting Trump up to be like a savior figure.
Yes.
And I mean, personally, I believe a lot that's going on right now. 'Cause this is what I was saying from the beginning was I believe that they were going to make things as bad on us as they could, and to have the appearance of communism being ushered in, to usher us to the light, right? The light side of Masonry, which I believe Trump is that figure. So everything that's going on, even like right now, they're basically starting war
Yeah.
in the Ukraine now, and who knows what that's going to develop into. There are people who are thinking this might be World War III. Who knows?
Yeah.
But to me, in my mind, it's kind of all being orchestrated to gain support for Trump. And
I totally agree.
Trump in Gematria, his name is 88 and 47. And if he were to be president again, he would be the 47th president. And then there's that 47 again. It's the what the compass is set to. It's a pretty important number to the Masons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed this Skull and Bones guy right here, the 23rd president of Yale University. He's another one Friday.
Yes, and that's how old he turned on, the pandemic was declared on 3/11. So at midnight, he turns a 666.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely get it. It's very hard for people to swallow information like this because, you have to then entertain that there really has been a orchestrated, organized plan to do some really terrible stuff to the entire population. And
Right.
I definitely know that the more people that I try to talk to about this stuff now, it does seem like they're starting to open their eyes a little bit more because it's just getting to the point now where there's so much stuff revolving around occultism that we see all the time. It's almost impossible for someone not to recognize that there's, a flaw in this media narrative and that there's all this occultism sort of worked into it, and it's turning out to be a much bigger plan than just like so many people thought we would be done with the jabs or done with the the flu, the coof by now, and it's I think just the truth is staring too hard in people's faces. It's hard for them to deny it now. So
Yeah, and the jab didn't really work, did it? If you take it, you might get it still. You might get COVID still. So to me, it's kind of insane to mandate something that hasn't worked better than it was advertised to work.
yeah,
It's silly.
and I was just curious about your thoughts on this. If you had seen anything when it comes to the jab. New York Patriot and I definitely have ideas on what we think is sort of integrated into the jab. Do you have any thoughts from an occult perspective? We do, at least. We think that there's a lot of crazy stuff there. But do you think, based on your research, did you find anything kind of similar? Albeit, like certain patents or certain maybe objectives of the jab? Like, what's the end goal?
Well, I feel more and more control is definitely part of it. I'm not sure. I'm kind of torn on that. Sometimes when I'm feeling a little bit black-pilled, I'm like, goodness gracious, what have they done? This is going to be some kind of genocide event.
Right.
But sometimes I'm not. More times than not, I don't think that. I think it's just evolution to much more Orwellian state type of situation. Having to have passports. I don't think open travel is going to be a thing that it used to be ever again.
Wow.
But I don't really speculate too much on what I think the jab is actually going to do.
Right.
We all just kind of have to wait and see, really.
Yeah.
I'm pretty suspicious of it. I'm seeing a lot of young people already having heart attacks, um, strokes. I'm seeing strokes all over the place. So I'm really suspicious with that. I feel like it could be highly inflammatory to our systems, and our systems are already very unhealthy. So it wouldn't really take much.
Yeah.
You can cripple a society pretty easily that way, with increase of dementia and cognitive issues in elderly people, and of course in the youth.
Yeah.
But who knows? It's just something we have to wait and see. But I know I don't trust it.
You got another one. Sorry, I don't mean to like cut you off and stuff, but I find another one going through the slides we didn't get through. You got another person here with their date is on a Friday.
Yeah, Tim Russert, he famously gave an interview to Bush, and he brought up the Skull and Bones in this interview. And shortly after, he died. And
Really?
yeah, and from his death date to that, in my mind, super powerful ritualistic 322 date is 4,666. And what I've noticed is I'm like, okay, so if this is really a thing, just go check. Just go check all the people that you can find who have been in the Skull and Bones. So that's what I did, and I found it over and over again. They would turn, we all turn 666 during the year at some time, right? But I've done this where I've checked myself, and I've checked all of my dates, and they seem to land on nothing. But if you check Skull and Bones members, the days that they turn 666, they just happen to fall on super significant dates to the occult. Like the Saturn conjunction, the day that Biden took the shot, or 322. Most of them land on 322.
Right.
And it's all just there. It's all been sitting here this whole time.
Yeah. I'm sure that you would have a heyday with all of the symbolism and the numerology in DIA, the Denver International Airport, which talks about all of this stuff that we're going over right now. Did you ever get a chance to look into that? It's really crazy.
Yeah, it's coded too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe I might have actually
I'm
included that.
I'm starting to wonder if these numbers in front of the 666 represent something to go along with the 666. You have like 7,
I think they do a lot of times.
6. I've seen. Yeah, I'm starting. This is very interesting.
Well,
But
that last one you have 7 for victory, and that suck.
See, 8666
would be Hood.
Yeah.
You guys covered the feathered. What's it called? The Quetzalcoatl.
Yes, Quetzalcoatl.
Well, I believe that bird is depicted in one of the murals in the Denver airport.
I think you're right. Yeah, the feathered plume serpent.
That Denver airport has got, blatant apocalyptic scene with like a Nazi holding a sword, and there's a plague surrounding him. And there was a Masonic capsule, like time capsule, with a date on it. And that date is coded to the pandemic.
Really?
I don't believe I included that in my slides, but I believe the date is 311 months and 22 days to the pandemic.
Wow. Yeah, I remember going in there years ago because I used to go out of DIA a lot, back and forth, and I remember that this was before I was even really into any of the occult stuff per se. So this was before I even joined a secret society, and I remember being in that airport and looking around and thinking how bizarre and strange it was, because there are the entire constellations of our solar system is laid out on the actual part of the airport where it's on the floor and it has a black sun, and you can
Wow.
walk. You have to walk through the security. So you're literally walking over this floor through security, taking off all your clothes. You're crossing this, threshold, or like in the occult would be the abyss. And they have this whole weird section of Aztec and Mayan like architecture, and it's restricted, so you can't really get too close to it, or walk to the actual part that has these different like statues and stuff. But you can take pictures. And so I took pictures of this and seeing all the murals, because you don't see that stuff coming into DIA. You see that
Okay.
stuff going out when you're departing DIA, which I always
Oh, wow.
thought was weird. And I took all these pictures, and I found out that like one of the etchings on one of the pillars in the airport was it was an excerpt from some type of magical book. And all those years ago, I was thinking that something was really off here. But anyway, I take all these pictures, and I'm like, before I leave to get on the plane, I think to myself, I'm going to send these pictures to one of my friends. And didn't have enough time. Get off the plane, in my hometown, and I pull up my phone to take the pictures, and they were gone.
No way.
As if I swear to God, as if I didn't even take them. And what even proved it more was that I had the chance before leaving the airport. I did have a chance to send like 1 or 2 pictures to my buddy. I just couldn't send like the 20 that I had. But those sent, and he had them. And then when I got off the plane, they were all gone.
Wow.
Well, it's proof of their existence.
Yeah.
That's wild. It's like the cognitive dissonance. It's like, why do these things exist? Like, why is that mural there? It's disturbing. Whenever you come into an airport, people want to be comforted in an airport, because there's, a lot of people are nervous flying. So why would you want such disturbing imagery? It kind of all these things just didn't add up to me, and there wasn't any answers. They have that Lucifer, the giant horse sculpture that's on the outside of the airport. People call it Lucifer because it's so disturbing looking. He's got bright red glowing eyes.
Right.
And I believe the artist was actually killed creating that sculpture. And then
You're right. Yeah.
They toured around Anubis, like the god of death.
Oh, Anubis, yeah.
Anubis, yeah.
That's all right, yeah.
He made an appearance there at the Denver airport. It's just like all these really weird things, and it's just, if you bring it up, people, they just don't want to hear it. They just fill in the blanks in their minds with, people are just weird.
It's true, very true.
Yo, I found your. I think you might have mentioned this earlier, and I figured like I have to at least, I found it when I was going through your pictures. I figured I had to at least stop on this one. This is Crowley's birthday. I think you might have brought it up earlier. Maybe.
Yeah, he's got
to death.
He's coded to all the dates. He's coded to 9/11, 3/11, and 3/22.
Well, like look what I said earlier though. I said 53 years. Remember I said 53, 9 months,
Right.
11 days. So right there, that one whole fucking line's got all the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck.
Damn.
Yeah, I've tried showing this. There's a couple folks online who promote Crowley real heavy, and I'm like, check out this numerology.
I'm not promoting.
I don't think this guy was a good dude.
No.
Definitely not.
No. I will even say just the way that his, you know what, if he was a good dude, when I walked into that order, things would have been told to me a little bit differently, at least after I became a member. If they were really that great of an order, I would have understood shit totally differently. I wouldn't have been
Yeah.
given half truth. I would have been total transparency. So any of these
Right.
things
Right.
really set up to mind fuck you and pull you away from the truth, really, more than anything. So no, he couldn't have been a good person because his orders. Well, then again, who's to say he really had these? But according to what we read, his OTO and Astra Argentum should have been different than if he was a better person.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild.
One thing that I'm just extremely thankful for is that you share this information to people. And I think I heard you mention earlier briefly that you had sort of maybe had grown up in the church, or maybe you're still involved with it now. And I've noticed that I did too. And I noticed that it's a huge problem in the church. And when I say the church, I mean just in general, that there is so much of what you've described here today that the church refuses to take a look at because they label everything as evil.
Oh,
And
this is the biggest problem, right? So I consider myself to be Christian, and my fellow Christians, when I first start talking about this stuff, that's all I got was, don't look at the darkness.
Hmm.
And I mean, and don't glorify the darkness. Don't give the devil more credit than what he deserves. And I understand the thinking, but the problem with ignoring what's going on is clearly it was dangerous to ignore it, because we're in a great deception. And it truly is like the whole world is deceived here. And because people didn't pay attention to what the occult was doing, because they just want to put their heads in the sand and carry on with life like none of this stuff is really happening. There's consequences to that, and we don't know what those consequences are. But people were manipulated into taking an experiment. So, we all just kind of have to wait and see to what the consequences are. But I have a feeling that it's not good.
right, and it's very similar, in my opinion, to if, again, I heard that so much in the churches, don't look at this stuff, don't talk about this stuff. And imagine if there was a group of people who were standing outside of your house and they were plotting your demise. And
Right.
people inside of the house just said, don't look at it. Don't worry about what they're doing outside. That's
Exactly.
what's happening in real life on a grand scale. And the
It's like
church,
telling you don't look at the thing that's controlling you.
right.
Right. Yeah. And a sad aspect of this is that I've discovered is a lot of these churches are actually run by Masons. So it works in their favor to encourage Christians to not pay attention to certain things.
We had a church. I don't know if it was when we did Quetzalcoatl. I don't remember what series now anymore. We had a church that had, what did it have, a fucking like some special ops type of fucking thing inside the building that was associated with like a Masonic order.
Yeah.
Like, it was fucking bizarre. It was like, it's as if like the church had like an extra room inside of it, and this place, it was like some weird type of special ops type crazy crap that was like the same number but like A or something like that. Like, you mean to tell me this is really inside this Baptist church right now?
Wow. Yes.
No, come on.
Yeah.
It really is, and that church really isn't a church or something.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. I think a lot of people think that this is all just, kind of goofy stuff that celebrities are into, and maybe they'll even buy into, okay, well, it's corrupted the government as well. But I think people one day will realize this, but I've kind of already realized this, that a lot of this stuff has worked itself down to the local level.
Oh, yes.
It's in our police department. It's in our local churches. It's it's quite literally everywhere, and I believe that it would have to be for it to work as successfully as it has worked.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And this is a conspiracy that's been going on for thousands of years. So they've had time. They've had time to organize. They're in every single country. I believe all the governments have been compromised, and it's kind of running on autopilot right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Susan, thank you
I
so
couldn't
much.
agree more with that.
right.
Thank you so much for the show that you brought to. That was really very. I mean, I was so excited to have you on, and I thought this was great. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me on.
Yeah.
I knew that this would be
I
kind
will
of a challenge.
definitely
I
have you
know
on
that.
again if you ever have stuff. Definitely.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it's like every time an event happens, there's a whole new. There's always new numerology to pick apart, because they definitely live by the numbers.
Yeah.
And
I've been noticing
doing
you.
a podcast with numbers is a little tricky. So I hope that your listeners will be gracious with that.
Well, you know what? I think we forgot to at the beginning. Please plug your. What's your page? Do you want to give out your page for people to find you?
Sure. Right now, all I have is Susan Mary Fine Art on Instagram, and that's Susan_Mary_Fine Art. I am a professional painter.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do photorealism. I'm an oil painter. So you can check out some of my artwork there as well.
I think that the patience that you have in painting shows here with your numbers.
Yeah.
Because that takes concentration and thought. See,
Right.
when somebody gets focused on something, they can create stuff, and I think that's just proof of it.
Maybe so.
Yeah. So thank you so much for real for being the first show to come on. I could definitely tell you. For me on my own show, I'll definitely have you on again. I thought this was amazing, and I can't wait to tell all my other podcast friends about you. So
Thank you so
I really
much.
had a great time, and please, people, go check out her pages. She even covers like you were saying, you covers the Super Bowl or just like certain things. She has great posts. She's actually somebody in the occult community that I follow. Like I check her stuff, and not trying to be like a cocky or anything, but I don't. That's saying something, I think, in my opinion. I'm trying to give her some credit here. Definitely go check out her stuff.
Sweet. Thank you so
and
much.
I'm going to put your link in there as well. People, go hit the link, go follow her. Definitely go check out her stuff. And also, Lux has a new podcast. I'm going to keep repeating that. Lux Rising. His podcast link will be in the bottom. My show notes will be in the bottom. And every place that you can find the Occult Rejects will be in the bottom with the show notes. And, I have some shout outs. Forgot to do those. I'm going to do those at the end, so then the people have to listen to the whole episode to hear it. Melissa, Aurea. I wanted to give a shout out especially to Helen, who runs our Discord. I don't know if we've ever given you a shout out before, and if we haven't, it's fucked up. I'm sorry, but she runs our Discord, and she does it selflessly. You know what I'm saying? And she always tries to do her best. When stupid shit happens, which is very rare. But, sometimes things happen. But she's always there, and she always handles it very professionally. And I just can't thank her enough for what she does.
Yeah.
I want to thank Conchetta. She's helping us also with trying to book people for us, or we have an Instagram page. Actually, I don't think I've mentioned that. You can follow us on Instagram as well. She's helping run that. Thank you so much. I don't think we've mentioned you before, and just want to put you out there so you know it's appreciated. Thank you to both of you women. Hellstar 71, and we got Big Woolly Mammoth, and there was another Italian, a fellow Italian, but in Canada, Teresa. Shout out to her, and that's it. So. Thanks again for everybody listening. I hope you got something out of this. Like I said, please go check her page. I'm definitely going to have her on. I think the shit was great, and I had a great time. Thank you again, Susan. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.